What is happening? What really is happening? Okay. Now the poem can easily be broken up into 3 parts at level 1, so let's do it. Level 1, our guy is reading in the middle of the night all alone. Notice he's not sleeping, he's awake. When he hears a knock and a bird shows up. Part 1, very simple. The bird flies into his house and goes on a little statue to a palace of Athena, this Apollo, this bust, okay? So he perches there. There's all kinds of symbolism and games that we can play at level 2A when we talk about meanings here. Second part of the poem, he has a conversation with the bird that can easily be broken up into 2 parts. Where are you from? Are you from the other side? That is to say, are you from Hades, the Plutonian shore? Are you from the underworld where the dead go? And then the second question he asks the bird is simply, my girl, Lenore, the one that I loved but now is dead? Did you see my girl? Did she send you back to give me a message? In the second part, the poem tells us the bird only says one thing, nevermore. Now, of course, in some ways, you have to decide as a reader if this bird is doing nothing more than just cawing the way a raven will. In other words, the raven doesn't actually speak the words nevermore. The raven just caws the way a raven or a crow will, and he interprets that as the words nevermore, right? And the next time you're at the park and you see one of those large crows making that sound that they make, you'll probably begin to identify maybe as, wow, could it be interpreted as 2-syllabic nevermore when they make that kind of strange sound that they make, right? Okay. The third part of the poem, the end of the poem, tells us that when he doesn't get an answer from the bird, he finally loses it. Okay? He finally loses it. He can't hold it together anymore. His depression, his loneliness has led him ultimately to his own death. He will die. His soul will never rise again. In other words, he himself goes to the Plutonian shore. Okay? It's a simple poem in that regards. A bird shows up, he assumes some things about the bird, and then he dies. Level 2A. Of course, there's any number of ways to think about the meanings of this poem. Lots and lots has been said about the meanings of this poem and what it is that Poe is really talking about. Let's just list several for your notes really quickly. One obvious observation is that we can see the effect, mentally, psychically, the effect that depression can have on a person. Notice, he isn't sleeping. He's up in the middle of the night. He thinks he's hearing things, and then finally he's having conversations with animals that can't speak. He's losing his mind. But the root of that depression is love. Can we point that out? He has tremendous love for his girl, Lenore, and he misses her once she is gone. What do we call this when somebody dies and the person is really sad? He is, right, grieving. Grieving, isn't he? Right? He's grieving about the death of his girl. He wants her back. The power of loss is an easy message of this poem then. Okay? Another message of this poem that we should point out is the idea that souls survive the body, which begs the question, if you believe that the soul survives the body, two-part question. One, where does that soul go? Does it leave and go somewhere? And then second question, can that soul communicate with people back in this world? In this poem, we'll see that Poe is kind of raising these questions as well, right? Let's point out at level 2B that we've got any number of ways to appreciate this poem. I just want to point out that if you go back and read this poem closely, you will see that there's actually 2 sounds that predominate. Let me ask you if you can write them on your own. What is for you the most popular sound of this poem? And I'll give you a hint. It's in the refrain that the bird will always speak. Quote, the raven, what's the word? Nevermore. Notice how OR comes up again and again and again in this poem. Lore, before, Lenore, nevermore, door, soar. These words that all end in that same sound are kind of like a mantra or a gong. There are students that will say to me, I don't know why, but I really like this poem when it is read out loud, but I can't explain why. The answer immediately, the easy answer is the sounds. One of them is this OR sound that seems to come back over and over again. The other sound you'll see is the number of ing words. Singing, ringing, flinging, ringing, right? Okay, over and over again, the ing sounds are married to the OR sounds, and you have a very haunting kind of sound in this poem. It's very easy to enjoy then hearing this poem read out loud, and when Poe published it, it was read out loud. It's kind of freaked people out. You would read it at night under candlelight, by the candlelight, and it would kind of freak people out, kind of scare them. In the same way that people still today like horror stories. Let's jump to 3A. What is for you your favorite scary movie? Do you have one that you like more than any other? Some of you will say, dude, I can write down 3 titles right now without even thinking about it because the scary movie genre is one of my favorites. Others of us will say, I am not going in a theater and sitting where things come jumping out of the middle of the screen in all kind of contorted body shapes, and then my popcorn goes flying 3 rows behind me onto the people sitting there. I don't go to these kinds of scary movies. Poe, in many ways, makes this genre very, very popular. Many years ago, a young Stephen King in high school read a Poe short story and would report many years later that this genius of the 20th century of these scary novels, and of course the movies that would be spun from his novels, would report Poe had a huge influence in his life in writing stuff that scares people or makes them think. We should point out, these kinds of scary movies require a certain kind of mental state. Would you agree with me? For example, watch some of these films that scare you with all the lights on, and it's a different kind of experience. Turn the lights off or sit in a theater where all the lights are off, and it's a different kind of experience. Notice the poem here begins, once upon a midnight dreary. In other words, it is late at night. It's dark. Okay. Finally, 3B. Let's ask about your own personal relationship to this poem and try and find some way to connect to it. We can do it in any number of ways. What is your saddest memory? What is the memory that for you makes you kind of melancholy? Do you have one that you've tried to maybe come to terms with? Maybe you don't even want to write it down anymore because it is a sad memory. Question, does that memory have anything to do with loss? Did you lose something? What is for you the loss of an individual that could lead to a really kind of sad state? Can you at all appreciate that this guy really wants to know about his girl? He wants to know if there's any hope. He asks, is there any hope that my girl is in heaven? Is there balm of Gilead? Hope. And the raven will say, nevermore. No, that's how he interprets it. And in the end, he can't stand that, the loss of someone. 3B question, who for you would be your Lenore in your life right now? Who would for you be the hardest person to lose in your life right now? Someone you really care about. And afterwards, you would want to know where they are, how they are, if you believe in this thing called soul. Another less ominous kind of 3B attachment is, what is your feelings about the dark and about scary stuff? Some of us like to be scared. Are you one of those people that you like to be frightened? You like to be in circumstances where somebody scares the ever-living poop out of you? Others of us are like, yeah, I'm not interested in that at all. I don't like scary movies. I don't like to have things freaking me out like that at all. Finally, we could ask the question, how does this poem for you resonate with other poems that you've read? What about this poem do you like the most? Is it the sound? Is it the message? Is it the pictures that are kind of drawn in your mind's eye? Artists, as you can see on 316, ever since this poem was written, artists loved this poem because it generated lots and lots of the pictures of the imagination. Let me ask you this question. Which is scarier, physical or mental? Which is scarier, physical or mental for you? And then think about, for example, the texts that most scare you. Do they scare you because of their physical frightening or their psychological, mental frightening? All right, as you go forward. A last kind of question, because some students really like this, is what is your favorite animal? Do you have a favorite bird? Notice that in the history of literature, we have lots and lots of birds that get referenced. Would you agree with me? In your sophomore year even, you read a really famous novel called To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, it's been pointed out that if you were to change that title to Kill a Crow, all of a sudden that title is a different title, because some people don't like that bird, the crow. They don't like ravens, they don't like crows, they freak them out. Black birds with nasty little beady eyes. Mockingbirds, on the other hand, are a different kind of bird for you. What is your favorite bird? Is it the eagle? Some people don't like buzzards, but they like eagles. Very interesting. Can birds represent stuff to you? And if so, what does a raven or a crow represent to you? Well, the next time you see a crow or you hear a crow's caw, maybe you'll think differently after the study of this poem. Thank you.